Palestine, a land sacred to Muslims, Christians, and Jews alike. A land that has witnessed centuries of blood, exile, and conquest. But also moments of peace, moments when all three faiths lived together, not as enemies but as neighbors. The question is, when was this harmony real? And why did it last longest under Islamic rule? Let us journey through history and discover what this means for peace in Palestine today. Before Islam, under the Byzantine Empire, Palestine was deeply divided. Christians held power, their churches standing tall. But Jews were banned from Jerusalem for centuries, barred from even stepping foot near their holiest sites. The land was not shared, it was exclusive. Then came a new chapter. In the year 638, Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab entered Jerusalem, not with fire and blood, but with peace. He signed the assurance of safety with the Christian patriarch Sophronius. Christians were promised protection. Their churches would not be destroyed. And for the first time in centuries, Jews were allowed back to live in Jerusalem. This was not conquest, this was coexistence. Under the Umayyads and Abbasids, Palestine grew into a shared home. The Dome of the Rock rose above Jerusalem, while the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stood firm and synagogues reopened. Muslims, Christians, and Jews prayed in the same city. They traded in the same markets. The land became a meeting place of three faiths. But harmony was shattered in 1099. The Crusaders stormed Jerusalem in blood and fire. Muslims were slaughtered. Jews were burned alive in their synagogues. For nearly 90 years, Jerusalem was stripped of its diversity, turned into a Christian fortress. This was the price of intolerance. Then came Saladin. In 1187, he retook Jerusalem. But unlike the Crusaders, he showed mercy. Christians were allowed to stay. Jews were invited back once again. Jerusalem returned to being a city for all three faiths. It was not perfect, but it was balanced. And then came the longest chapter of peace. The Ottomans ruled Palestine for 400 years. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived side by side under the millet system. Each community had its own schools, courts, and places of worship. Spanish Jews fleeing the Inquisition found refuge in Palestine under Ottoman protection. It was not a utopia, but it was stability. For centuries, this model kept the peace. But everything changed in the 20th century. After the First World War, the Ottoman Empire fell, and Palestine came under British control. At first, many thought the British would bring stability, but instead, London played a dangerous double game. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration promised a national home for the Jews in Palestine, while also claiming to protect the rights of the existing population. Yet in practice, the British favored Jewish immigration, while Palestinians, Muslim and Christian alike, felt betrayed. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, waves of Jewish settlers arrived under British protection, while Palestinian lands and rights shrank. The once stable coexistence began to collapse. Riots, protests, and uprisings broke out, not only between Arabs and Jews, but also against the British rulers themselves. The Mandate period turned neighbors into rivals, and the land of shared prayer into a battlefield of broken promises. So why did Islamic governance, more than others, preserve harmony? Because it protected minorities with law, not just tolerance. Because it allowed access to holy sites for all faiths. Because it created shared civic life while respecting religious autonomy. And because, unlike short bursts of tolerance elsewhere, it lasted for centuries. The lesson is clear. Whenever outside powers interfered in Palestine, from the Crusaders to the British, the result was bloodshed and division. The British Mandate, with its broken promises and favoritism, shattered centuries of coexistence and left behind a legacy of mistrust. But history also shows us something else. When Muslims governed with justice, under Umar, under Saladin, under the Ottomans, the people of the land, Muslim, Christian and Jew, found ways to live together. The future of Palestine cannot be dictated by outsiders who exploit the land for power. It must rise from within, through justice, protection and dignity for all its people. Just as Umar once promised, safety, freedom, and respect for everyone who calls this land home. Peace will return to Palestine, not through domination, not through foreign interference, but through justice that embraces every faith and every soul.